We're officially 20 days away from the NFL draft. And yeah, we're excited about this life-changing day for the future stars of the NFL. So we're doing a 20-day countdown. The latest on Fernando Mendoza after his pro day coming your way shortly. And what's going on in Philly? Another series of anonymous sources has talk heating up in Philadelphia. Could Jalen Hurts really be on some type of hot seat? Well, someone here thinks so. We'll explain it. Meanwhile, the other Pennsylvania team is still playing the waiting game with Aaron Rodgers. Our Steelers reporter Brooke Pryor is here in-house. She joins us to break down just how long that wait could last. And let's talk about the Raiders. They're not waiting until the draft to land a quarterback this offseason. We saw this news yesterday. Kirk Cousins is going to be coming to town in Vegas. Cousins, one of several key additions under new head coach Clint Kubiak, including Pro Bowl center Tyler Linderbaum and linebackers Quay Walker and Nakobe Dean. A lot of help there potentially for Fernando Mendoza. You talk about timing. Listen to what Cousins told Kevin a few weeks ago about quarterback development.
There was a time when, Aaron Rodgers got drafted and sat for 3 years.
Yeah.
Carson Palmer got drafted and sat for a year. But there have been teams that have said that was the plan, and then week 4, 5, 6, the guy's playing.
Yeah.
I also think that there was a time when coaches stuck around.
Yeah.
And a quarterback learned a system and played in that system for most of his career. The position of quarterback requires a continuity around you that you just don't have anymore. The young guys, you want to give them as much continuity as you can, and that just hasn't been the environment that many guys, including a Sam Darnold, have been given.
Courtesy of This Is Football with Kevin Clark. We have Kevin Clark here today. Great work there, Kevin. We'll get a lot more out of you as we carry along. Mina Kimes, Tim Hasselbeck as well. Kevin, why does this move make sense for Vegas right now?
You just heard it from Kirk Cousins. It creates stability and creates an environment where Fernando Mendoza doesn't have to be a star week one. Raiders fans, clip this, hang a banner, do whatever you want to do, tweet it out. For the first time in 25 years, the Raiders have a good idea. They have a good plan. This seems to be a nice runway where everything is coming together. Kirk Cousins is at best a guy who can start half the season, maybe even into December, and give you good football, let Fernando Mendoza learn the offense. At worst, he's a mentor, a coach in the quarterback room, a coach during training camp, during OTAs, who can install that system. That coaching tree, Shanahan, McVay, Kubiak, that coaching tree loves Kirk Cousins because he knows the offense, he doesn't take many liberties with it, and he puts the ball where it needs to go. He's the absolute perfect mentor for Fernando Mendoza. And in Vegas, this will be the best buddy cop movie of all time.
I agree.
When you look at it from a standpoint of, like I think you said at the worst, Kevin, at the worst, he's learning from somebody, Mendoza that is a master of this offense. Kirk Cousins, whatever people want to say about him, when you look up what he's accomplished in his career, it's been remarkable, and he's done it because he's played, as you kind of referenced, in the confines of this offense. He's studied it the right way, he's learned it the right way, he's played it the right way, and so I think with that, there is so much to be gained from that. Look, it's one thing for a coach to get up there and do an install and take you through something. It's another thing for a guy that has the battle scars to do it in front of you and then also explain to you the why and the mistakes that he's made along the way. And then on the other side of it, as we talk about guys getting thrown out there too quickly, Cousins, like a lot of guys, feel like there's still more in the tank. And so, there is an element of iron sharpening iron here where Cousins is going to feel like, he's got a job that is going to be his at the beginning of the year, and he's going to fight to keep it. That's just how he's wired, and that should make everybody that's a part of that team and that quarterback room better.
Yeah, you make a great point there, Tim. I mean, obviously, the idea here, Mina, is Cousins can mentor Mendoza. But when Mendoza does eventually take over, whenever that happens, you still see some question marks at a key position group.
Yeah, if I was given the Raiders an offseason report card, veteran quarterback, A+. Center, A+, right? Tyler Linderbaum. Wide receiver group, it's a little bit closer to a C there because right now, as constituted, I don't think it's good enough. I like Jalen Naylor, who they brought in, but Naylor, Trey Tucker, who's a speedster, Jack Besh, it just doesn't inspire a ton of confidence for your number 1 overall pick. And when I think about what Fernando Mendoza does well, particularly the best throw in his arsenal, which is that back shoulder ball, I do think they need to add size and contested catchability. The Raiders are picking at near the top of the 2nd round, but when I look at some of the receivers who I would love to see there, Denzel Boston out of UW, heck, Fernando's old teammate, Omar Cooper Jr. would be an interesting option. I do wonder if they might have to jump perhaps the Chiefs at the end of the 1st round and trade back in. And I do think because it's so important to set Mendoza up for success, it would be worth it to give a little bit of draft capital up if you feel that you need to jump back into the 1st round to get one of those receivers.
Yeah, the good thing for them, it is a receiver-rich draft. There's a lot of talent in this draft. I love those names that you mentioned, but there's definitely some receivers that could be game changers right off the bat. It is 20 days until the NFL draft, and for the Steelers, the clock is ticking. Pittsburgh could have a major decision to make as they continue to wait out Aaron Rodgers, or I should say wait on Aaron Rodgers, right, and what he's going to do next season. If they don't get an answer soon, could draft night be the answer? We now welcome in our Steelers reporter, Brooke Pryor. And Brooke, the draft less than 3 weeks away. It's going to be here before we know it. How realistic is it that the Steelers will have a decision from Aaron Rodgers by that Thursday night in Pittsburgh?
Well, Laura, you said you guys are doing the 20-day countdown to the draft. That could also be the countdown to Aaron Rodgers' decision, because I asked Steelers owner Art Rooney II at annual meetings if he expected to have an answer by the draft, and he said yes, that's what he anticipates. It could be wishful thinking because we know Aaron Rodgers works on his timeline and his timeline only. But all indications are that he is going to decide sooner rather than later. When we talked with Mike McCarthy at annual meetings, he was saying, look, I FaceTime with Aaron Rodgers often. He said he talked with him the night before. He said it's every week, every couple days. So they remain in constant contact. By the way, the off-season program schedule dropped today. The Steelers report to OTAs for the first phase on April 7th next week. They have mandatory minicamp June 2nd through 4th. Last year, Aaron Rodgers signed right before mandatory minicamp that was a little bit later in June. I believe it was June 11th, June 10th or so. So if it doesn't happen by the draft, if Art Rooney's wish does not become reality, then perhaps by June 2nd.
That's another good tentpole, though, in this potential timeline. If they don't get an answer, what can you tell us about Pittsburgh's contingency plan at quarterback? Obviously, they're putting all their eggs in this Aaron Rodgers basket, but what if it doesn't happen?
Right. Well, I think one of their contingency plans in Kirk Cousins, obviously now off the board because he is in Vegas. They do have Will Howard on their roster, and Mike McCarthy has been so incredibly high on what he likes out of the 6th-round pick. He even said this week that, look, if it was up to him, if he was drafting last year, Will Howard would not have been on the board there. He also gave us some insight into quarterback traits that he likes, because I think it's a very real possibility that they could draft a quarterback, maybe not in the 1st round. They have other needs to address, but a later round guy. Things Mike McCarthy likes: 10-inch hands, cold weather quarterbacks, playoff winners, long arms, all of these things that a couple guys in this draft have. Maybe a Carson Beck, he has 10-inch hands. Drew Aller, also big hands, long arms. Garrett Nussmeier, another option, doesn't have quite the hand size, but it's close enough. So they have some contingency plans that they're working through.
Carson Beck in a quarterback room with Aaron Rodgers and Will Howard would be really interesting.
Yes,
he's a guy that's got a big chip on his shoulder. But to your point, they do need to build some depth at that position. We know that however much longer Aaron Rodgers plays, if he does return, it's not going to be that long. All right, thanks to Brooke. Now we know that Rodgers struggled to throw the ball downfield last season, but the lack of wide receiver production was a problem before Rodgers even got to Pittsburgh, right? Over the last 2 seasons, no team has fewer catches and yards than the Steelers when targeting wide receivers. So it's been an issue for a while there. Now, Tim, the numbers didn't improve with Rodgers. So is keeping him part of the solution, or is that potentially part of the problem?
Yeah, I don't know that it's necessarily part of the solution. The thing I would say is this, Aaron's timeline has always been, there's a saying in the NFL, be who you can afford to be. Everyone had to wait for him. For a large stretch of his career, he's the best player in football. Now, it's kind of like, maybe it's a good option for us. I don't think you can wait around for Aaron Rodgers. And I don't think that the Steelers will this year. I think that he definitely directed their, kind of off-season plans a year ago because they knew that he was going to play. I don't think that's the case this year, and so I could see them adding a quarterback. And I don't think that means necessarily that they wouldn't still be open to bringing him back. I don't think that he's the solution for them going forward. I think Mike McCarthy knows that. Just when you look at how this kind of shakes out, I think ultimately McCarthy would rather start new so that a year from now he feels much better about his quarterback situation than he does right now.
I'm not fully anti-Aaron Rodgers, but I'd like to point out that Tim just spoke for about a minute, and it was tracked entirely with highlights or lowlights of Aaron Rodgers getting strip sacked. That's not good when you can have an entire lowlights reel of strip sacks, okay? Last year, Aaron Rodgers, not the player that you're accustomed to seeing wearing that jersey. He was targeting receivers at a 70% clip, under 10 air yards. That's the most by any quarterback in the NFL in the last 3 years. He was the quickest time to throw in his career. Because he cannot buy time with his legs, because he's not the athlete he used to be, he is a quick release quarterback. He cannot create that damage down the field. So the issue is now the Steelers, as Brooks said, they're backed into a corner. They can't sign Kirk Cousins. I don't think they're going to be a Ty Simpson candidate. All of the guys that they maybe would target, a Carson Beck and Nussmeier, the names that she said, those aren't day one starters. So you're looking at Will Howard or Aaron Rodgers, but all of those give you limited offensive options. And for a team that can win now, with the rest of their stars, guys like DK Metcalf and TJ Watt, it's a little bit of mixed messaging. So I'm confused as to the plan if it's not Rodgers. But even if it is Rodgers, guess what, Mike McCarthy? You get a Mike Tomlin season, 9-8.
Interesting. I mean, listen, it does feel like the plan is Aaron Rodgers, but that does, of course, beg the questions about the future, Mina. If the Steelers are trying to build for their future, what should they focus on in this draft?
So I think that the Steelers are actually well positioned in this draft for both this season and beyond. Kevin, you talked about Aaron Rodgers and his lack of mobility right now. And he does throw the ball very quick at the moment, in part because I don't think he wants to get hit. But I do think where the Steelers are picking in the second half of the first round, there's an opportunity to bolster the offensive line. Right now, the interior of the Steelers' offensive line is excellent. And I thought Troy Fautano, the tackle out of Washington, took a step forward and also was healthy. But they do need, I believe, an answer, a next man up at left tackle. And where they're picking, I think there's going to be some interesting options. Potentially Monroe Freeling out of Georgia, Caden Proctor out of Alabama. Whether or not you want those guys playing on the left side or the right side, depending on how you view Fautano, I think they're going to have their pick of some players. And that, to me, gives them better protection for Rodgers this year, which we know is essential, but it also sets the table for them to go grab a quarterback next year, because I agree with you, I don't see them taking a quarterback very high in this year's draft.
Yeah, Mina, the Steelers ranked second in pass blocking last season, as you know, among offensive guards, but only 19th among offensive tackles. Monroe Freeling's getting a little more steam lately. Field Yates was on him from the beginning, but now I think a lot of people know about him. Be interesting to see if he lands with the Steelers. We're just getting Jaguars, and Trayvon Walker agreed to a 4-year deal worth more than $110 million. Mina, what do you think about them rewarding Walker?
Yeah, Trayvon Walker's been a good player. I think he suffers a little bit from being that first overall pick before Aiden Hutchinson, who obviously has become a superstar. But if you take that out of the equation and just look at Walker's career, he's been tremendous against the run, only had 4 sacks, I believe, last season, but before that had double digits the prior 2 seasons. And he's been an excellent Robin to Josh Hines-Allen's Batman. So I think the Jags getting this done for a young player makes sense. Contract will age well. And now I think they should focus on adding some pass rush juice on the interior between those pass rushers, because they really haven't gotten enough in that particular area of their defensive line over the last couple of years.
$77 million guaranteed. Congratulations to Trayvon Walker for that deal. All right, in case you missed it, we've got some things to catch you up on. Ohio State coach Ryan Day was on Kevin Clark's This Is Football podcast, confessed why Sonny Styles is the reason he quit playing basketball. Take a listen.
I remember it was the last time I ever really played basketball one-on-one. We were in the indoor here, and we were having an event in July right before camp started. Lorenzo was here, and so we went into the basketball area, and we were messing around, and I said, well, come on, little guy, let's go play one-on-one. And he took 2 dribbles and dunked on me. And that was the last time I played basketball because I said, no, an 8th grader just dunked on me. I said, I'm done with this.
Oh, Kevin, other than that incredible story, Ryan Day had plenty of great things to say about Sonny Styles. What makes him such an intriguing prospect in this draft?
First of all, that was a genuine laugh. Do a lot of fake laughing in that industry. That was a genuine laugh from me on the show. But no, one thing he said was that he was such a good athlete when he arrived, Sonny Styles, and he thought that there'd be a time when he grew into being a linebacker. Sonny Styles at first fought that, but obviously that's become clear that he is not only a linebacker, but the best linebacker in this draft. He had the best vertical jump of any player since 2003, better than Calvin Johnson, better than Nick Emanwari last year, who was the combine freak of all combine freaks this time last year, and obviously we saw what he did as a rookie. I think Sonny Styles is an instant impact guy. I have him circled to Tennessee at 4, if not Giants at 5. I think we know what a linebacker who can cover tons of space does in the modern game. We've seen it many times. How about being Robert Saleh's Fred Warner in Nashville?
Yeah, don't overthink it. Just take him. Jeremiah Love, you're out. Sonny Styles, you're in. All right. Patrick Mahomes, in case you missed it, recovery timeline was a big topic of conversation for Kansas City, and Andy Reid addressed those questions this week. This is what he said.
So he's been in the building every day, so I've had a chance to kind of see him progress through this thing. He's doing great. It's hard to measure, are you ahead of schedule or not? I mean, who makes the schedule, right? So every player is different. I will tell you, though, I would never bet against him. He's always going to put in the time and effort, and always push it, but within reason, so he doesn't take steps back. So far, it's all been positive.
Who makes the schedule? Got a big laugh out of me, Tim. Whether Mahomes is on the field or not, though, what area does this Chiefs team need to focus on this offseason?
Well, I think really focusing on the offensive side of the ball. You know, they've struggled at receiver for a number of years now. Obviously, they've addressed running back this offseason. It's something they've kind of neglected in past years. Listen, I think help up front, figure out what's going on, in terms of the future beyond this year at tight end. They've been a defensive-led team. And so, I do think offensive help for when Mahomes is not available, but also when he comes back, because, you see the video of him coming back from his rehab. We've set the schedule, I think, Laura. We've kind of just, made it a foregone conclusion that guys come back from major knee injuries and are just totally fine and back to their normal selves. That isn't always the case. And so help being on the way for Mahomes in Kansas City is a good idea.
Yeah, we've set the schedule because he's the GOAT, and we're excited to see him play again. But yeah, let's pump the brakes a little bit here. Coming up next, the Browns.
I think winning is hard, especially when you're trying to repeat. Everything was clear for us and what we wanted to accomplish this year, and we came up short.
Back goes Purdy's looking, fires, complete touchdown.
We're going to make enough plays. When it happens, we lose football games.
The 49ers knock off the defending champ.
You don't win a Super Bowl season is disappointment. Kind of all that for nothing.
All that for nothing out of Saquon Barkley's mouth. That was the last time we saw the Eagles, by the way. And the run game went backwards in 2025, just a year removed from their Super Bowl win. Philly ranked top 5 in 2024 in yards per rush, rushing first downs and touchdowns, but fell well outside the top 10 in all 3 of those in 2025. There's been a lot of conversation around the Eagles, what's going on. There's been anonymous reports, all that jazz, but the numbers bear out a lot of this as well. And we certainly talked about plenty of it as the season was developing last year. Mina, Jalen Hurts' success is tied to the Eagles' run game. So what adjustments do the Eagles need to make this offseason to improve?
Yeah, well, let's start by talking about why the run game matters so much for Hurts in particular. I dispute the notion that Hurts isn't coachable. His improvement over the course of not just his professional but college career speaks to the fact that he is quite coachable. However, I do think it is indisputable that he has certain preferences, like a lot of quarterbacks, one of which is he doesn't like throwing over the middle of the field. He prefers to face single high coverage. The best throw in his arsenal is a go ball. When he gets those one-on-ones on the outside, that's when a lot of the magic happens. Now, the problem is, and Laura, the numbers you put out illustrate this, you're not getting as much of that single high coverage when defenses aren't bringing extra safety into the box to stop the run. So I think for the Eagles, that is the single most important thing they have to accomplish this offseason. And it's not just about Sean Mannion, the new offensive coordinator, coming in and figuring out a way to diversify the rushing attack. It's also about the personnel. Howie Roseman in this draft. The offensive line wasn't as good last season. And I do think you've got, an aging legendary right tackle in Lane Johnson that they could look to back up in case he misses games. But to me, if you're focused on fixing the run game in order to help your quarterback be his best self, it has to be attacked from all angles, schematically, but also in terms of adding offensive linemen. They added a blocking tight end, which I loved, by the way, but that's something that has to continue to be a focus in Philadelphia.
Yeah, Tim, so much of this, too, has people scratching their heads. Like, why did Saquon Barkley have the year that he had previously and then last year fell off a cliff?
Well, some of it is just opportunity. You think about it, he had about 75 fewer carries last year than the year prior. So that's part of it. Mina touched on it. She's exactly right. The offensive line is getting older. They have not been as good. So that ends up being the issue. Look, he rushed for over 2,000 yards 2 years ago and was just over 1,100 this past season. He rushed for 13 touchdowns 2 years ago. Rushed for 7 last year. Think about this. Now, look, and I'm not sure it's sustainable, his 2024 campaign, I guess it would have been. Like, he was averaging 5.8 yards per carry. So, you wonder, like, hey, how do you win a Super Bowl with this team and this offense and this quarterback and this and that? Look, they were a big play waiting to happen when they turned around and handed the ball off. Look, that was different. And so, yeah, like, it shouldn't be a shock that Hurts's, production, consistency, all of that is going to be tied directly to Saquon Barkley's production and how well he plays.
So I think a lot of Eagles fans are saying that maybe the media is unfairly going after the Eagles or whatever it is, or conspiracy theories. To me, it's very simple. The Eagles have very high standards because they always have one of the best rosters in football. And so I don't think it's just Jalen Hurts under pressure every year. I think it's also Nick Sirianni. I think it's the entire roster. Mina's right. Jalen Hurts has shown a lot of coachable tendencies over his career. He would not have improved as much as he has if he was uncoachable. However, there were obvious issues. Last year, the downfield passing just wasn't as accurate as it has been. If you look at the numbers, especially to open guys down the field, it wasn't nearly what it was in 2024. I just feel like the Eagles, Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, they feel like they give you one of the best rosters in football, and the tax you pay on that is your job is always under scrutiny. They fired Andy Reid. They fired Chip Kelly. They fired Doug Peterson about 5 minutes after he won a Super Bowl because of the pressure that gets built up there. So, yes, a guy like Jalen Hurts, after a down year, is always going to be under scrutiny, but it's almost a compliment, Philadelphia. The one thing to watch for me is what happens in the next few months as far as Jalen Hurts' contract. $22 million guaranteed next year. That's not a lot for quarterbacks. I'm intrigued to see if that develops.
It's a good point. The Eagles, we're talking about the coachability of Jalen Hurts. They're on their 5th OC in 6 seasons under Sirianni. Hurts is on his 13th play caller, okay? So I'm pretty sure he's coachable, people. To Cleveland, where the quarterback competition, speaking of those, is already heating up. Our Browns reporter bringing up some really interesting stuff, Daniel Oyefusi, released a story on ESPN.com this week where head coach Todd Monken said this on the QB competition, quote, they're going to be evenly dispersed, but we'll definitely disperse them to give ourselves a chance to at least evaluate who we have on the roster and who that might be as we go through the offseason. Talking about reps, okay? When asked how he'll decide who takes the first starting reps, specific situation here, Monken said it would be based on, quote, what we've seen in the past and where the year ended last year. So I don't know. I'm trying to decipher some of that, but the Browns QB room is currently at a crossroads. You've got a pair of 2025 rookies with limited experience, both getting in the fray last season with mixed results. And then there's Deshaun Watson, who has 72 career starts, but made none last season after continued problems with his health. And a lot of buzz from Cleveland this week. According to Browns owner Jimmy Haslam, Deshaun Watson is in the mix to start. Todd Monken had good things to say about Shedeur Sanders. We've heard that Shedeur has been in the building a lot, too. Tim, what's the smartest path for the Browns at QB?
Look, listen, they need to rebuild it at quarterback. And this is the way I look at it is this. If I were Todd Monken, and I could coach as long as he is coached, to get the opportunity to be a head coach in the NFL, and you might be your only one, I don't think that he's going to live and die on that opportunity with the current room at quarterback. Now, it doesn't mean that he won't live with that this year. But so I think what they're going to do is, I really don't think Watson has a shot. He's been away from the game for so long. He's had basically 2 Achilles injuries. I think his credibility in the locker room has been compromised because of his past. I just think there's too many things with it. And so I think Shedeur Sanders finds himself in a remarkable position to be a 5th-round draft pick, to have a losing record as a starter, as a rookie, and have a legitimate chance to be the starting quarterback opening day the following season. It doesn't happen often. In fact, I have thought about it. I don't know that I can remember another scenario like that in the National Football League. So if they don't draft a quarterback, and I think there's a lot of people that believe that they won't, I think he's got a good chance. He should be in the building to try to prove that he can play at a starter level.
It has to be Shedeur. I'm with Tim. I don't think that Deshaun Watson should be in this quarterback competition. I think that you give Shedeur the runway, and obviously you can have a training camp battle with Dillon Gabriel. I just think Shedeur is a lot better than Dillon Gabriel, and he'll win that competition as long as everything is equal and everybody is healthy. So I think you just go with that. I think that they can have an okay season. I do think that they'll be okay generally if they take a step back this year. 2027 is a very deep quarterback draft. You're talking about Dante Moore, Arch Manning, C.J. Carr, Darian Mensah, John Mateer. There are so many names out there. This is not the year to reach for a quarterback. You do not want to be in the market for a Ty Simpson, a Carson Beck, and a Nussmeier. You wait for a year. I like Todd Monken playing the patient approach, getting Deshaun Watson out of this competition, getting Shedeur in there for a year.
Yeah, Mina, what's your view on how the Browns are approaching the season? Oh, sorry.
No, yeah. I just hope Monken gets that chance, guys, right? Like that they're going to let him be the coach next year, because I don't think it's going to be a winning season for Cleveland. I don't think the 2027 quarterback is on the roster. But Laura, to your question, I do think they're in good position to improve that roster in the draft. So Browns fans, if you want to feel good about your team, you should be happy that you're not reaching for a quarterback this year, and that the organization has the draft capital to continue improving the offense so that next year that rookie steps into a better situation than the one that likely Shedeur Sanders is played in last season and will likely this year as well. 2 picks in the first round. They're going to have their choice at pick 6, I think, of the top receiver in the draft. Could be Carnell Tate locally. And then I think you could walk away from this with another offensive tackle as well. So I think for the Cleveland, you got to really think about the long-term plan here and how can we continue improving this offense. You got a great tight end, great back last year, so that next year it's a good situation for a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, shoot, they still have Myles Garrett too. So on the defensive side, it's like you look at the entirety of this team and you see what Mina's talking about there, how they could set this up really well for any of those quarterbacks you just named. Arch Manning, you want to go to Cleveland? We'll see. Maybe they'll win too much. I don't know. Coming up next on NFL Live, big play in the offense last year.
It's the least amount of explosives we've ever had. That to me goes from scheme. It goes to a couple runs from the backs. It goes to not blocking on the perimeter as well as I feel we have in the past. But we definitely got to get better at that. We've never been that low statistically. It's something that we do commit to, and we still stuck with it throughout the year, which I think did help us out in the pass game, but we didn't get the production we wanted, and that's something we're really trying to improve on.
He's one of the best minds in the game, right? What do you think was behind the Niners' lack of big plays and how they can improve?
Yeah, I wouldn't blame scheme, as Kyle does. To me, it's just a lack of space, and a lot of that had to do with the receiver injuries, which is also how you had the lack of explosive receptions as well. Christian McCaffrey led the team, in catches, not surprising, but he had almost twice as many as the next wide receiver was Juwan Jennings, who is not a downfielder. He's a great receiver, working in the middle of the field, really tough, but he's not a deep threat. So now you're looking at a group with Mike Evans as your ex-receiver. They signed Christian Kirk to play in the slot, and Ricky Pearsall slots into what I feel is his natural place is the Z. And to me, when I think about the Niners being explosive, Pearsall's health could be massive in that regard, because When he is healthy, he has a ton of juice. Ran a 4.4, great long speed, fantastic hands as well, catching downfield. He just got to play the entire season. But if he does, that's someone I would look to help make this passing attack more explosive.
All right, we'll keep an eye on those 49ers. Got to think it's going to be a lot better than it was last year, and they still made it pretty far considering all the things they were dealing with. Still to come. Also hold the 12th pick, by the way. So the Cowboys have 2 first-round picks in this year's draft. Our analysts say they're taking 2 edge rushers, Miami's Reuben Bain Jr. at 12 and Missouri's Zion Young at 20. Dallas has not gone defense twice in the first round of a draft since 2005 with Hall of Famer DeMarcus Ware and our own Marcus Spears. Right, so if they do it, be a long time since they've done it. Kevin, you like these projected picks for Dallas? It was interesting at the league meetings. There was kind of some rumblings that maybe they could go offense with one of those picks.
No, I love the plan here. The best teams throw resources at a problem. And obviously, this is a problem of Dallas's own doing in the sense that they traded away the best pass rusher maybe on planet Earth south of Myles Garrett. But why don't you add in Reuben Bain and Zion Young to give you that kind of push? Reuben Bain dominated in big games against teams like Notre Dame and Ohio State. I just feel like he's the type of guy, instant impact, high motor, and knows how to set up moves and knows when it's winning time. A clutch pass rusher. I promise you there's such a thing. Zion Young is going to be able to stop the run day one. He's not as dominant as Reuben Bain, but he's got some ruggedness to his game. I think both these guys are absolute beasts. I think they know NFL physicality. I love both of these picks. I think I would run to the podium for both of them.
Tim, looking at Reuben Bain Jr., Zion Young, what jumps out to you about how they could fit in Dallas's system immediately?
Well, the thing with me with Bain, I feel like his floor is so high, such a good football player, and I think you wouldn't necessarily always have to play on the edge. Like you can move him around. You know, just hearing Kevin talk, it was kind of remind me a little bit. Look, when I was at the Giants, they had Michael Strahan and Osi Umenyiora. Then they drafted Justin Tuck. Then they drafted Matthias Kiwanuka, and like next thing you know, it was like, well, I guess they're just going to keep doing this. And then ultimately it led to them winning a Super Bowl. It just, like in some ways for me, you traded Micah Parsons. There's a lot of heat about, okay, you don't have an edge rusher now. And you don't have, I mean, in really quick order, you could flip it completely around and have the defensive line edge, position be a strength. And that'd be a good thing for Dallas with the rest of their team.
Yeah, I echo what everyone said about Bain. If Bain Jr. is there at 12, just don't even think about it, right? I think the trickiest part for Dallas is simply that they're picking behind Cincinnati at 10 because both of these teams have copious needs at defense. You could go edge, you could go defensive tackle, linebacker, safety, corner for either team. So they might not be able to get the best player available on defense that's still there because of Cincinnati. But I do think they're going to have some interesting options. And with 2 of the picks, you got obviously 2 chances to get an impactful defender.
All right, it's time now for one more thing. You guys